So, picking up where I left off, the opening lines of Howl do show this resemblance to Whitman's kind of poetic structure. These long, very vivid lines filled with imagery and sensory detailing. But think about the difference in tone, right? The emotional and mental disposition of the writing, right? There's a certain sense of ecstatic love and universal embrace that you see in Whitman from the get-go. And, some narcissism. I love me, but, you are me also. He's blending those differences between, he's blending the boundaries between self and other. But here we get this opening that is filled with despair. It's got such a very different tone. And he talks about addiction in that very second line right there. Um, and it's important to keep in mind that Hal was written um, in something like, say, 30 hours straight by Ginsberg in response to the suicide of his friend Carl Sullivan. And it kind of made him feel like, if Carl is gone and he was the best among us, what hope does anybody have? What hope does the human race have? And if you've ever lost somebody to an event like that, you have felt I'm perhaps that same way. I know I certainly have. So he's connecting that. And this is, in some ways, a very new subject matter for American literature, to be talking openly about that sadness and that sense of loss and despair. And he does put it back on in that second part of the poem. He puts a lot of his anger and finger pointing towards the military industrial complex. Corporations and banks and financiers, people that are keeping parts of America oppressed, barely making it by on wage slavery, if even that. Remember, he uses the term Moloch for that, and that clip of Moloch that we see from that very important early silent film, Fritz Lang's Metropolis, shows that merging of machine and industrialism and also urbanscapes, all put into one, where people are actually part of a machine. And I think for any of us who have ever done a repetitive job at one point or another, you feel like you're being part of that machine. A machine that is in some ways eating you too, as you see those workers stepping into that fiery factory demon's mouth towards the end. Watch that clip. Other things I put on there too is Jack Kerouac describing and defining what the Beat Generation is and where that term comes from. And that's a very nice spoken word piece that'll help you out too. I was going to say one more thing about that. I don't. I feel like I'm rambling. I feel like I'm doing my own beat poem here. And if you think about it, once again, returning back to Whitman, that similarity, and I put some lines here from Leaves of Grass. The mate stands braced in the whaleboat, lance and harpoon ready. The duck shooter walks by silent and cautious stretches. The deacons are ordained with crossed hands at the altar. The spinning girl retreats and advances to the hum of the big wheel. The farmer stops by the bars of a Sunday and looks at the oats and rye. The lunatic is carried at last to the asylum, a confirmed case. So again, we see that listing, that epic catalog of names, of people, of occupations, of actions. I feel like I've got enough to say on that too. Now, another way in which we will see that genealogical connection between Whitman and Ginsberg is Ginsberg's eventual evolution into a sort of contemporary or mid-century transcendentalism. The idea that everybody is divine, that the divine and the godlike exist in all human beings and in all aspects of being human and of being part of the earth. In one of his very famous poems, Sunflower Sutra, he does make that point. We're not our skin of grime. We're not our dread, bleak, dusty, imageless locomotive. We're all golden sunflowers inside, blessed by our own seed and hairy, naked accomplishment bodies growing into mad, black, formal sunflowers in the sunset, spied on by our eyes under the shadow of the mad locomotive riverbanks, sunset, Frisco Hilly, tin can evening sit-down vision. That last part gets a little trippy here, but basically, he is walking through this railroad track and he sees this sunflower that gives him this burst of inspiration that even in this sooty and loud and dirty train yard, there's a sign of organic transcendence there, and that's this beautiful sunflower. And in a way, he's making the suggestion that, hey, we're all in the same, dirty train yard together, but we're all this beautiful and aspiring and inspirational sunflower. And that's just about where we're going to end it right there. Thanks for watching. I'll be looking forward to reading your discussions. Take care.